Welcome parents to the Director's Box presentation on the role of the parents. Hopefully you'll give me about 10 minutes of your time just to watch this video completely. We've had a few issues over the last couple of weeks since the return to play with parental discipline on the sidelines from both within our club and externally. And I think you'll find a lot of points raised in this presentation very useful and helpful going forward. So let me get started by showing you the Charleston Soccer Club's development philosophy. We presented this on previous occasions, but for some of you new parents, you'll see it for the first time, and we'll leave it up there for a minute. But what we definitely know is that holistic development, to develop the whole player, requires education to the coaches, the players, and to you, the parents. Over the past few seasons, CSC has progressed, and we see it as success that we've managed to access way more leagues than we did when we first started. There was a plethora of reasons why we weren't allowed in these leagues, but we've overcome those challenges, and it's great, and you can see a list of the leagues that we're involved with there on the screen. The advantages to this is there's more choices for players and teams, more appropriate games, less travel for the younger players without losing competition really, better competition across the board, more home games, kids playing against their friends, which was something that was not available for the first couple of seasons that we were up and running. The disadvantages to that is, with these new leagues, teams are in the wrong leagues based on clubs, teams' placements, and that's not necessarily our own, although there is a couple of teams right now that are probably in the wrong league because of what we were told the leagues were going to look like, or other teams have switched teams or tried to get an advantage by leaving better teams in leagues. So what happens is when you've got unbalanced games due to poor placement, you get unbalanced leads or unbalanced scores. And that obviously leads to a lot of anxiety. Coaches get upset, parents get upset, parents get false impressions sometimes of the level of the team, i.e. they're winning too often or they're losing too often, but it could just be the case of that they're in the wrong league. Everyone watching this now is a parent of a young soccer player. Even if you're 18, I consider that a young soccer player. So these are things that you're going to encounter throughout your kid's soccer career. You're going to come across poor field conditions, poor behaviour of opposition parents, physical contact during the game, your kid, their kid, your kid getting injured, kids from other team wanting to win more than your team, poor play from their team, from your team, poor officiating, their own players having a bad game, your own players really having a good game, your player being substituted, a bad call from the referee or the lines person, a missed offside, a last minute goal. You're going to win a penalty shootout, you'll lose a penalty shootout, and some of you are going to experience poor coaching, but we're trying to really overcome that with our in-house education program. All of the instances above you're going to come across, but all of them are out of the parent's control, and it doesn't matter how much you yell, shout, right, or even change clubs, you're still going to come along and experience these, and parents have got to learn to work through these emotions and understand why these are happening and accept that they're going to happen. When it comes to the players, every young player is going to meet Mr. or Mrs. adversity. Okay, every player will meet them. It's absolutely guaranteed that if you play soccer long enough, you're going to come across some Mr. or Mrs. adversity. That could look like injury, poor performance, lack of form, lack of playing time, you're cut, you're subbed out, you move down a team, or a coach that just doesn't see your value. If your child gives up when they meet Mr. or Mrs. adversity for the first time, then that's as far as they were meant to go, because they're going to meet them several times if they're going to have a long career in the game. And even as young players, they're going to meet them very, very early on, and they're going to meet them a couple of times. Your job as parents is to support them through that when they meet these adversity people, okay? We've tried to support you that as a club. We've given everyone access to the Soccer Mindset Academy. All parents should engage in this app with their child. But I'm telling you, it's not just a soccer app, but it's a life/parenting tool for you parents. It talks about all things, how to get your kids engaged, motivated. It talks about mental rehearsal. It's not a deep psychology app, but it's an app that can support your child through the ups and downs of their lives, but in particular, their soccer lives. And I think it's important that Those of you who haven't engaged in it yet need to start doing that. We've all seen it. We've all seen that parent on the sideline. You may, as you're watching this, you may have been that parent on the sideline. But look at the implications of parents when they're shouting and yelling, what implication it has on their child. It can cause embarrassment, humiliation, guilt. They could be ashamed. They're certainly going to be flustered. Then it puts pressure on them to perform. It then puts pressure on them from their peers to perform. And in extreme cases, coaches may have to withdraw them to protect them from what's going on the sidelines. Everything that's mentioned there could lead, I'm not saying will lead, but could lead to them quitting what is the world's greatest game. So parents, you really do have to really seriously think about what you're doing and what the implications are on your child when you start shouting and bawling from the sidelines. Some things that CSC has noticed this year, because we've got into these leagues, as we've mentioned earlier, there's a greater anxiety playing against some of these local teams, from players, from some coaches, and certainly from parents. Sometimes there's an unrealistic expectation while playing local teams, almost like a sense of entitlement that because we're CSC that we are expected to do this. I certainly believe that there's a lot of people that have really ignored or forgotten the negative impact that COVID has had on player performance. Some of these kids have not played soccer for 4, 5, or even 6 months. And as much as I'd love to say playing in the garden and doing some Zoom calls and individual sessions through Zoom is going to help, it's certainly not going to replace what they've missed. So it's important that parents understand that they're not going to automatically get back to the standards that they had prior to COVID. If you look at the Premier League, there's only been one 0-0 game in the first 7 rounds of matches, which tells you something. So imagine taking that down through the development triangle or pyramid, what it's going to look like for young players. I don't think enough parents have really taken advantage of soccer mindset, and maybe that's a club situation where we haven't promoted it enough, but it's important now that if you're watching this, that you do engage with the Soccer Mindset Academy, because it's going to support your child through this COVID period and beyond, and way beyond. As I said, it's more of a life tool as well. And what we've noticed is there's way more negativity from CSC parents on the sidelines than we've had in previous seasons. And what that does is it all has a negative impact on the majority of the players and the team that are playing in that particular game. Kids do get embarrassed, as I've said. Coaches get embarrassed. Referees then sort of have a negative energy towards the team and the club. So it's important that we keep that in check. This is something that I think every parent needs to see and understand and know, that every child has their own ladder of potential, okay? And every kid's at different stages, and this pyramid is great because it can change from year to year. But even though you think some kids are the best players you've seen, they're nowhere near their potential. And the younger they are, the further up that ladder they've got to go. And there's a lot of kids that have peaked early or are late bloomers, and parents have to remember that. It's a long, it goes back to the first slide about our philosophy, the pyramid of success. You can get higher up the ladder than someone if you have more potential. But if you don't, if you look at this one here, if you're not prepared to work and you're not prepared to really strive hard, you're going to start at the bottom of the ladder. And success really for every individual is getting to the top of their ladder. And we're working very hard with our coaches to make sure that they work with your individual child to get as far up their own ladder as possible. So this is a great slide, and it's something that you can talk about amongst yourselves on the sidelines. And as I said, it changes from year to year, but you have to be aware that this goes on. And finally, your role as parents. This is your role. You do have a role to play to positively support the team, the players, and the coach, but not to coach. I say it all the time. I wouldn't dream of coming into your line of work, whatever you do, if you're at work in a bank, in an IT firm, in a store, and come in and tell you how to run your business. But for some reason, some of you feel the need to tell us. If you want to be a coach and you feel that you've got the qualities to be a coach, then go away and do the licensing, do all the courses, go to all the evening classes, do all the online classes, and become a coach. We'd love to have you. And then we can help develop you further. You should come along to be entertained. Your children are trying to please you. They're trying to entertain you. Let the coach educate the players. And sometimes education, you need to have a negative experience in order to learn from some of those things. So respect that as well. Respect the officials. No official that I've ever met goes out to deliberately hurt an individual team or an individual group of parents. They just get it wrong. And that's okay. It's okay. We all make mistakes. The quality of refereeing in this country is starting to go up, okay? But you've got to be patient, and you've got to make sure that you don't cause problems for the team by continually getting the referees, because they have good memories. Respect the opposition team and coaches. That should always be the case in anything that you do. Cheer and clap without instruction. That's the best way to do it. And basically your role is to create a good learning environment for all the kids, ours and the opposition. You remember that, and we'll always have a good time when we go to games. And finally, this is a statement that we've seen and we used in coaching education all the time, but this is what a young kid basically is thinking and trying to tell their parents. I am a youth athlete. I am brave and strong and talented, but I'm still just a kid. I am not perfect. I am a work in progress. I need you to be patient while I test the limits of my body, work through the emotions that come with success and failure. When I make a mistake, I wonder if you will be disappointed. When I reach my goals, I look to see if you are watching. I am a youth athlete. I love the sport, my sport, which is soccer. You call it competition. I call it playing the game. I want to win and have fun. I am a youth athlete. I am your youth athlete. Winning feels great, but your praise feels infinitely better. Please remember these things, and I promise you to do my best to make you proud. That's what every kid is thinking. So, at Charleston Soccer Club, we are striving to make sure that all our parents are going to set the right standard for all clubs in South Carolina. Keep up the good work, people, and thanks for listening.